Council Economic Development Committee. I'm joined by my colleague, Mr. Joe Busciano, and we are pleased to conduct the committee's business this afternoon. Mr. Clerk, where are we?
We have multiple items on the agenda today. We have 14 items. Would you like to start with item number 1? And I do believe we have general public comment for two members want to speak, as well as multiple comments on every.
Okay, let's take, we should take general comment first. Okay, Mr. Herman? No? Not present. Not present? Diana Cruz? Ms. Cruz, please come forward.
My comment is for item number 4.
Okay, that's fine.
Go ahead.
Can we do it now?
So,
Let's close general public comment.
that will close, John.
Excuse me, we'll close general public comment and then open the multiple item comments. Okay, Mr. Herman, still not here. Ms. Cruz? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Herman only on that item. All right, we'll close public comment on that. Mr. Clerk?
So I believe that takes us to item number 1.
Yeah, let's, before we go there, let's take items 5 through 14. If there are no objections,
Move the items.
we'll take that on consent. All right, thank you. All right, next item, item 1.
Item number 1 is a report from the Economic and Workforce Development Department relative to the Tax Cuts and Job Act of 2017 and city projects and investments in opportunity zones and qualified opportunity funds.
All right, opportunity zones, the latest buzzword for economic development.
Latest buzzword indeed.
Hit us to it.
Good afternoon, Sam Hughes with the Economic and Workforce Development Department. Before you was the report back concerning the motion regarding the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017 Opportunity Zone Program. Specifically, the report provides an overview of the Opportunity Zone Program, recommendations to the IRS in response to its proposed regulations, and a marketing program to promote city projects and investments in Opportunity Zones. Essentially, the Opportunity Zone Program was established to unlock unrealized capital gains by incentivizing private sector investments and development, and development in designated census tracts. And the proposed regulations governing the zones appears to be silent
Maybe
on...
Sam, try to switch and I don't think they can hear you. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Much better.
Great. Good afternoon. Just reviewing the purpose, the report back governing the motion introduced by council a few weeks ago, and the discussion here concerns the Opportunity Zone Program, and EWD, along with the city departments, was requested to report back with respect to any recommendations to the proposed regulations from the IRS, as well as a marketing program. And the Opportunity Zone Program, in short, was established to unlock unrealized capital gains by incentivizing private sector investments and development in designated census tracts. And the proposed regulations as they stand seem to be silent as it relates to matters concerning the possibility of some social equity issues. And so some of the recommended amendments to the regulations include, but are not limited to, accountability, requiring a declaration of intent section on the initial filing form, namely 8692 of the IRS, CDFI eligibility component, along with some other recommendations as articulated in the staff report before you. I think there's upwards of 7 or 8 recommendations. The city family at large contributed, and so those recommendations are before you for consideration. Secondly, the other call out, if you will, in the motion was with respect to a marketing program. After considering the opportunity zones, we think it's prudent if the first step to a marketing program should include establishing an Opportunity Zone website, essentially hosted by EWD, that will provide an overview of the program, benefits to participating in investments located in opportunity zones, maps showing what areas are designated as qualified opportunity zones. So that would be sort of the low-hanging fruit, if you will. Secondly, we believe it's important that in addition to the website, that there be a marketing material, essentially to take the form of an investment prospectus to further illustrate opportunities within various council districts. In so doing, council offices can provide detailed information on sites within its boundaries. And lastly, armed with the investment prospectus, EWD believes that the council office's planning and economic development deputies can conduct tours with fund managers and those interested in developing within council districts. And so the marketing program, if you will, in short, will provide an overview on the website, and then secondly, there's an investment prospectus, which is something tangible that can be handed out specifically to those fund managers as council offices conduct various tours to specify various areas within their district that are ripe for investment. And so in short, if invested in the right type of projects, the new capital infusion could spark sustainable development, and the IRS, Treasury, the administration for that matter, has done a pretty good job in coming up with this, and it's incumbent upon cities to take advantage of this opportunity to market its sites and businesses located within areas that would otherwise, not experience as much growth as other areas of the city.
You mentioned the city family weighed in on these proposed recommendations. What's the timing? When do we have to get back to the feds, and when are they going to be promulgating the final sets of rules and regs? Do we know yet?
Yes, the deadline to respond to the feds is December 28th, and with the approval today and a subsequent approval hopefully by council on tomorrow, the city family, EWD specifically, will go ahead and pen the letter and submit that so that Treasury receives it well in advance of the December 28th deadline in anticipation of what I believe is the January 10th hearing there in D.C.
Lots of good recommendations. But describe what's being recommended that the community development financial institutions, or the CDFIs, be eligible for investment from the opportunity funds.
Sure. A CDFI is essentially a financing tool, a community development financing tool that businesses in many ways have access to borrow funds, to partner with community efforts in a variety of neighborhoods throughout greater Los Angeles. As the regulations propose, they do not allow for an investment into a CDFI. They do not consider that an investment in business. This recommendation would encourage Treasury to consider an investment from an opportunity fund into a CDFI as an eligible activity. And I think that will serve two purposes. One, it'll allow the opportunity fund to deploy its capital, and secondly, it's another source of capital for CDFIs to go ahead and invest that money in communities.
All right. Clarify the department's recommendations on the opportunity zone gross business income provision. The gross business income provision, why that would be helpful.
Sure. The recommendation for those in the audience is that for each taxable year, an amount less than 50% of the gross income of a qualified opportunity zone business, such as an internet or logistics business, is derived from the active conduct of a trade or business in the qualified opportunity zone, be the basis for determining eligibility. The current regulations they're such that 50% or more of the business's gross revenue be derived from activity in that location. But there are different types of businesses, particularly logistic businesses and others that will generate dollars from places other than specifically within the boundaries of a zone. And we don't want to preclude those businesses from tapping into potential investments from qualified opportunity funds. And so the recommendation is that the threshold be something less than 50%, and in lieu of giving them a suggested percentage, whether 25% or 20%, I think it's prudent that Treasury, the folks at Treasury, if they in fact consider this recommendation, that they do the appropriate analysis to determine what that threshold should be, so as not to preclude businesses that otherwise won't have access to these dollars that undoubtedly will be deployed in these areas.
Yeah, well, it is has the prospect of being another important tool in the toolbox, and as you said, it's a way to unlock some resources that just have not been available before. I know a lot of our local institutions, major institutions, are looking at this as well, SC amongst others. Have we had any conversations with any of our institutional partners about their interest or...
EWD has not had any direct communication with USC or any of the universities or the business or schools of economics. Discussions regarding the same will evolve in time. We look to partner with our educational institutions, certainly those in areas that abut an opportunity zone, but certainly we want to take advantage of all the intellectual capacity that's out there that we can use to sort of help come up with an opportunity that ultimately helps all the businesses that are located in these zones.
Okay, good. Councilman, any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you so much for agendizing this before this calendar year. I want to thank, of course, EWGD for your swift response on releasing this report. I've had an opportunity this past spring at the National League of Cities Congressional Cities Conference to meet with Senator Tim Scott and Senator Cory Booker. You see before you an opportunity zone, this legislation that it has clearly bipartisan support. It's something that we don't hear today in Washington, and I'm happy to see this now filtering down to the states and into local municipalities, not only here in California, but throughout the country. You know, I've often said that we're looking at a time where new business formation is at a record low, and uneven recovery is leading too many communities to be left behind. And this is a type of new formula that we need in order to embrace more public-private investments and partnerships in our city. It's also important that we have strong centralized leadership on the Opportunity Zone program to ensure that we're maximizing its effects for its best abilities as our city, and which is why we introduced this motion in October, and I support these recommendations. Clearly, they are spot on for our size and within the number of Opportunity Zone that's before us here. Mr. Chair, you're right, this is the buzz that we're hearing throughout cities across the country, and I just feel that we cannot pass this by. And there's other cities in the state that have already leaped forward on the marketing tool. That's why it was important for us to include in the motion to find a way to create a marketing strategy. Our neighbors in Long Beach have done an amazing job in launching a website and creating a marketing strategy. And I do see that as a recommendation, but the report isn't clear as to who's going to do it and when it's going to get done and where the funds would come from. So I want to hear, Mr. Hughes, the next steps on developing that marketing strategy for opportunity zones in our city.
Sure. Thankfully, EWD has resources in order to engage a third party, if necessary, to help us develop the website that will be hosted by EWD. That will take place undoubtedly within the next 45 to 60 days, subject to approval from this committee and council as well. What EWD is secondarily tasked with doing is, after developing that website or in conjunction with developing the website, is to contact council offices, 13 of the 15, and work directly with the deputies in helping to create an investment prospectus. Once that prospectus has been developed, that prospectus will be marketed to fund managers and the like. The precise timeline for the same, as far as I'm concerned, is imminent. It's now. And given what Long Beach is doing, given what other cities are doing, we need to get ahead of the curve. Funds have been established. Trillions of dollars are ready to be deployed. There are a number of investors that want to take advantage of this tremendous opportunity, not the least of all to step up in bases after 2 years. That's really the calling card for this deal from the private side. And so there are fund managers that are ready. that are able, and they're looking to deploy the dollars, and EWD is going to stand tall in making certain that the website is up within the timeline that I mentioned earlier, and then subsequently working with the impacted council offices to identify the sites, the business opportunities within those districts that we can have narrated, if you will, in the investment prospectus.
Right, so you're right, Mr. Chair. This is another tool in the toolbox, very similar to the Enhanced Infrastructure Finance Districts, the EFIDs. I'm hoping Budget and Finance can soon hear that. Maybe I'm told after the first of the year. But also, you know, we need appropriate staffing levels to get this done as well. I don't see a position authority for this. Does that mean that staff is already available to support these efforts in EWDD? I see Ms. Perry's here, our general manager. Thank you for your leadership on this and getting this out, this report quickly, Jan. And does EWDD have the capacity to take this on moving forward?
Yes, we have the capacity. Staff is in place through our business advancement team that was blessed under the previous committee, the jobs committee. So we're staff, we're ready to go. They're informed, and we're ready to move forward, subject to approval from committee and council.
Mr. Chair, is your goal to get this to council tomorrow?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic.
The recommendations today.
Yes, it's definitely no delays. I think we ought to lead with a sense of urgency on these opportunity zones, and before those dollars are getting poured everywhere but Los Angeles. So thank you, Mr. Hughes, for taking this on, and I want to thank Allison Becker on my team, who has really led this effort in CD15, and looking forward to continue partnering with you, Mr. Chair, on making this happen.
No, we appreciate the real collaborative effort, the leadership that EWDD is providing, and we do appreciate the GM, Jan Perry, being with us. Let me ask you, though, one last question. We talk about the abbreviated economic development strategy. We kind of like that terminology. How is this going to be different from the economic strategy, the citywide economic development strategy, the SEDS, that each council district sort of comes up with? Is it the same, or a variation on that, or how is it going to be distinguished?
That's a pretty good call out, and I can appreciate that. The abbreviated economic development strategy, presumably, it's just the ideas that each council office specifically has governing economic development. What are their plans? What do they envision? What do they want to have done? What corridors within their particular council districts are of most importance to them? And it's having a sense of that, and knowing that we can work with the council offices to identify the sites, the businesses, and the like that are best suited to take advantage of these funds. So it's not an elaborate formal strategy. It's something that likely is already on the shelf of various council offices, or something they can brainstorm about and we can brainstorm with them about, so that we can be very focused in our effort to ultimately market the opportunity fund sites.
And the particular benefits in each council district as they may exist. Okay, thank you very much for the testimony, and Councilman, unless there is objection, I recommend that we approve the EWDD's recommendations as presented and move this on to the council.
Second.
No objections, that will be the order. Thank you. Okay, let's move to item 4, please. Item 4, Mr. Clerk.
Item number 4 is a motion from Council Members Price, Harris-Dawson, and Wesson relative to strategies for including food-centered community economic development initiatives in the existing and emerging economic development incentive programs, and assessing the feasibility of piloting a good food zone in South Los Angeles.
Okay, thank you. I understand the food policy is joining us for a presentation. This is item 4.
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Brianna Hawkins. I'm Policy Director with the Los Angeles Food Policy Council, and we are a network of over 400 organizations and 6,000 individuals working to ensure everyone has access to healthy, sustainable, affordable, and fair food. If you can refer to the document, the PowerPoint presentation that I provided for you, I had a PowerPoint that was supposed to be on display, but Murphy's Law. And I'm excited for the opportunity to talk about good food zones. And it's not really a new concept. There are municipalities throughout the country that develop targeted financial incentives to support healthy food retail development as a strategy for promoting equitable economic opportunity, as well as equitable food access in communities that need it most. And I think with the emerging economic development incentives coming down the pipeline, the City of Los Angeles really has an opportunity to leverage them to support healthy food access and really invest in the food economy here in the city through food-centered community economic development. So, when people think about Los Angeles, one of the first things that comes to mind is food and the culinary diversity and how it reflects the diversity of Los Angeles. Most folks don't know that close to 20% of the jobs in the region are actually within the food sector, from production to manufacturing, and there are some agglomeration economies in the city of LA where there are clusters of food manufacturing businesses that provide us a comparative advantage over other cities in regards to that industry. So good food zones can leverage that and create more job opportunities, workforce development opportunities, as well as access. We also know that in the food industry there are fewer barriers to entry, regardless of your education level, skill set, even documentation status. You can start a food business because 4 million people in the city have to eat. And we also know that with the emergence of the Silicon Beach to the west of us, and even Lacey right in our own backyard, that there's become more investments in the intersection of food and technology. And we can potentially leverage those, again, to support more workforce development pipelines, as well as businesses invested in the city. And then also a healthy Los Angeles leads to a wealthy Los Angeles. We know that when you invest in healthy food access and options, that it leads to improved academic performance and worker productivity that has implications for today's Angelinos and the Angelinos of tomorrow. We're also well aware that there are disparities in access in communities like the East Valley and Boyle Heights, South LA, and the Harbor Gateway, where there are not as many options for people to have healthy food. In South LA, there are about half as many grocery stores per person in West LA. Boyle Heights is about 3 times more corner stores and liquor stores than the city average, and we've seen disproportionate rates of nutrition-related chronic disease, but also leakage. Many of the residents in these areas will talk about how they go outside of the city boundaries to meet their food retail needs because the neighborhood can't meet them. And we actually have a group of parents and students here today talking about how when they go to the grocery store, the meat is green and the fruit and vegetables are brown. And the disparities in quality of existing stores can also be a barrier to access as well. So good food zones, it's really a 3-pronged strategy to invest in the local food economy here in Los Angeles. It's about food business retention, about providing technical assistance and financial incentives that can invest in the capacity of existing businesses to improve the quality of food served through the retail options, improving healthy food access, but also building their capacity to withstand neighborhood change. When we think about some of these neighborhoods that are low income and haven't been previously invested, they're also the most vulnerable to gentrification and displacement. We often think about the residents, but we don't think about the businesses that have been there for 20, 30 years whose rents are also going up and they are being displaced. So investing in these businesses can really provide a safeguard for those establishments as well. This strategy is also about food business attraction, incentivizing new businesses and requiring them to hire locally, and then food business innovation, really creating an environment that could cultivate innovation and creativity to support more food entrepreneurs and innovative food technologies. And how it works is we know that the city already has a whole host of incentives for businesses like food businesses. There's the Restaurant Hospitality Express program through the planning department that provides expedited permitting. There are DWP rebates, but the challenge is there's not a central place for these businesses to be able to access those resources. And what we've seen in other cities is that they've had like an ombudsman or concierge services that can sort of consolidate all of these incentives to make them more accessible, especially for the little guys who are the owners, the managers, the retailers, and the guys who are closing up at the end of the day. So it's about making existing incentives more accessible, but it's also about creating new incentives through opportunities through gross receipts tax. Most food retail businesses have really small profit margins, and oftentimes they actually take a loss on healthy food produce, for example, to lure customers in so that they can then get some of their dollars on more value-added products. So the gross receipts tax provides a little bit of a cushion for these businesses and a real incentive for them to be able to locate in Los Angeles and stay in the city. Public recognition, we're seeing more and more that people are recognizing that their budgets, how they spend their dollars, reflect their values. And through this program, we can recognize businesses that are saying, hey, we're investing in the communities that we're locating in to encourage the community to then continue to invest in them. And through the program, we can also provide readiness services so that they can be eligible for contracting opportunities with not only the City of LA, but also county departments as well that are looking to invest more in local businesses. And then last but not least, continuing to provide technical assistance. It's one thing to have the incentives, but sometimes businesses just aren't quite ready yet to be able to take advantage of those. So through the technical assistance resources from healthy food retail experts, we can help to build that readiness so that more businesses can take advantage of them. And as far as eligibility, again, we're targeting both existing and new businesses located in community plan areas that have been designated as having low community health and equity index scores as indicated by the city's health atlas provided by the Department of Planning. And they'd have to meet certain standards for local hire, for fair labor, sustainability, nutrition, and food quality that will be informed by the city's current good food purchasing policy, which establishes standards for departments in their food procurement currently. And then they also have to commit to annual compliance reporting in a hearing setting sort of like this where, again, they're reporting on their level of implementing the program requirements and then making adjustments as necessary. And we already have sort of a local precedent for the policies. Currently in the city's plan for Healthy LA.
Go back to eligibility.
Yeah, sure.
I'm sorry, if I can, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Yeah.
The City Council recently approved the food vendor ordinance. Remind me, any synergies here between the eligibility here of new and existing businesses and the recently approved street vendor, food vendor ordinance?
Yeah, that's a great question and something that we were heavily involved with as well. Those are exactly the type of innovative food enterprises that we'd want to see. So, with the new program, they're going to have to meet certain standards for the city as well and providing technical assistance to be able to not only have them take advantage of the city's legal permitting program, but also potential contracting opportunities through departments is something that they can do. They can provide food for events. And so is there a certain process in order for them to be able to do that, and this program can provide technical assistance to support them in that, as well as expanding their businesses and being able to potentially go to a brick and mortar, which is oftentimes a lot of the objectives of some of mobile food vendors. Any other questions before I move on?
No. Continue or to wrap up?
I'm close, I promise. Okay, so the plan for Healthy LA already has language in there about healthy food zones. There's also the Sustainable City Plan that also recommends that the city adopt healthy food zones, and some community plans in the city of LA, and particularly in South LA, have mentioned the need to establish healthy food zones as well. And then places throughout the country have also established them. New York City has a fresh incentives program that provides real estate and sales tax and mortgage tax incentives for healthy food retail businesses. And for over 6 years, from 2009 to 2015, they were able to create over 20 new grocery stores, retain approximately 500 jobs, and create 900 new jobs, and generate over $80 million in the local communities. So what we're recommending is that the city move forward with really identifying some feasible eligibility requirements and incentives for a good food zone program in the city, and establish a pilot program for 2 years in South LA, and work with relevant departments to consolidate, again, existing economic development incentives and opportunities coming down the pipeline to support this approach to community development. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. This is a very progressive approach. I think it's consistent with our efforts trying to diversify the service providers, utilizing street vending, for example, and making sure that we're making resources available. But it's got good food zones have to be a part of our economic development strategy, and so we're excited that you've been that the council's been such an effective advocate for it and on behalf of the citizens. I think we've got some public comments as well.
If I can, just really quick, I know I wasn't one of the makers of the motion, but I wanted to make sure that Watts was included in this. Okay.
Definitely.
Okay, and then also the Gateway area, we have a Food for Less that it's doing a much better job after we've raised some issues with the residents there and the management. But I heard you indicate that Harbor Gateway is also included as one of the food disparity locations as well.
Definitely, yeah. No, I lived and grew up in that area, so I'm well aware of the disparities there. To the point about Watts, that, it's a part of the Southeast Community Plan area, so that would be a part of one of the areas that we would hope could be a part of a pilot. And to the point about community residents getting involved, that's exactly what the public recognition component allows communities to do.
Thank you.
Well, we look forward to your continued advocacy as we move this policy forward, and your input will be greatly appreciated. We've got some comments. Vicki Vaughn, Jonathan Grazon, Dana Cruz, and Mary Lee. If you're in the house, come on down.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
My name is Vicki Vaughn, and I'm a United Parents and Student Leader. I live and organize in South LA. I have long suffered an issue in my neighborhood with low-quality food in my community, and the conditions in our local stores are below standard. In many cases, there is rotten produce, expired dairy and meat products, unsanitary environment, etc. It is important that attention is brought to this problem and that changes are made to improve the condition. Our goal is to shop in the neighborhoods where we live, as opposed to having to leave the neighborhoods for better stores. Over the last year, United Parents and Students, with the support of LA Food Policy Council, created a report card to access stores. When stores meet the guidelines we have established, they earn a UPAS Certified Store of Excellence seal. In contrast, we have begun meeting with managers of stores failing to meet standards to push for improvements. We should not have to go to grocery stores outside of our community, and we should not have to be the grocery store police. The Good Food Zone motion would incentivize healthy food businesses in our community. This is urgently needed to strengthen our access to the food and the stores that we deserve. Thank you.
Thank you for speaking up.
Good afternoon. My name is Dina Cruz, and I work for Social Model Recovery Systems. I am here to share our support for the Good Food Zone motion, which will help to level the playing field and can potentially benefit numerous Angelinos. We work in two underserved communities of color, Skid Row and Boyle Heights. Sadly, our communities are inundated with few food options, and oftentimes we must patronize liquor stores in order to obtain them. For example, Boyle Heights contains approximately 200 alcohol outlets and only 44 food stores, which translates to approximately 4.5 alcohol outlets for every food retail establishment. Incentivizing good food zones to promote food center economic development in South LA is a win-win for entrepreneurs and the community, because access to good food supports one's health and sends a message to the community that they matter and that they deserve the best. We hope that this motion passes and we can have this opportunity in Boyle Heights and in Skid Row. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Mary Lee, lifelong resident of South Los Angeles, and for the last 12 years I've worked with PolicyLink, a national organization that promotes advancing equity, racial and economic equity. And in my capacity at PolicyLink, we've supported a lot of these sorts of efforts, particularly targeted incentives that check the geographic locations of low-income communities, communities of color, and advance the kinds of innovations that are being presented here today. So I'm here to just encourage you to move forward with this effort, investing in bringing healthy food to underserved neighborhoods, to economically impacted neighborhoods, really does have this multiplier effect that's really been exciting to watch. It not only addresses low-income communities' long-term health needs by increasing access to healthy food and all the health benefits that are often impacted by the lack of healthy and affordable food, but it also increases economic vitality in those communities, and it has the potential to expand racial and economic equity, providing jobs and business opportunities for entrepreneurs of color workers of color. We can tell you many, many examples of where this is happening across the country in addition to what's happening in New York, but D.C., Minneapolis, Detroit, New Orleans, and many of those places. So we urge your support and excited to hear the work of the Food Policy Council in this effort and your cooperation and support. Thank you so much.
Again, thank you for your comments. Thank you for all the comments. It is exciting to know that other communities have embarked on this road and have been successful. So we've got some good role models that we can pick from. So again, we appreciate your advocacy and hope that you'll continue to be engaged and involved as we move this policy forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we will receive and file. What are we doing with the report? Jonathan, we call Jonathan. Is he with us yet?
He's out with United Parents Students. He had to return to his job.
Okay.
But he would say something similar to response.
Okay. Okay, then we will approve the motion as presented. Next item. We're going to go to 3.
Item number 3 is a report from the Chief Legislative Analyst relative to the redevelopment of 570 West Avenue 26, the former Laurie's California site. This was also referred to the Arts, Entertainment, Parks, and River Committee.
Okay, I understand CLA's got an amendment.
Yes. Good afternoon, Brian Randall with the Office of the CLA. After further discussions with the CAO's office, we recommend that recommendation number 2 of our report be replaced with the following, which I will read into the record. Instruct the City Administrative Officer to resolve the outstanding request for $78,000 related to property financing with the Section 108 loan for the Los Angeles River Center and Gardens project pending notification to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development.
Okay, without objection, that'll be the order as recommended. Thank you. Okay, next item.
Now, last item on the agenda is item number 2. This is reports from the City Administrative Officer as well as the Economic Workforce Development Department and the Workforce Development Board relative to the 2018 request for proposals for the America's Job Center of California.
Okay, we've got some public comments on this item, and let's hear from them first. Marguerite Womack, Melinda King, Adam Westcott. You've got 1 minute. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Marguerite Womack. I'm with Youth Policy Institute. I serve as their Senior Director of Community Development. I would like to speak to this motion because of the recommendation of the city's department. It actually leaves the community of Pacoima and the northeast corner of Los Angeles without adult workforce services. There was a distribution of centers, which completely leaves out Pacoima, which, as you probably know, is one of the poorest neighborhoods in San Fernando Valley. In fact, it was the subject of Steve Lopez's recent articles on homelessness in the San Fernando Valley, and it's home to Telfair Elementary, which is the #1 school, the highest number of homeless students in Los Angeles. And most recently, even this past weekend, a homeless man was hit by a car, and it's just been awful. Sorry. The thing that we do is we prevent homelessness. We have brought in more than $1 million of additional funding to make sure that our services are provided, including financial coaching, which is provided to each of our constituents. So I really would like you to reconsider the way that the distribution has been proposed, and even if there perhaps an additional 6 months to understand it better, since the Workforce Development Board had only less than 24 hours to consider the recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Melia King. I am a participant at the Workforce Center. A little bit of my...
At which Workforce Center?
The Pacoima location.
Okay.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes,
okay.
thank you.
I'm here today because the Workforce Center has helped me personally. I come from a background of alcohol and drug abuse in my family, and so naturally I got involved with that. It's been difficult to seek opportunity having a record of my sort. but I do have a true desire to change, and the Workforce Center has helped me get employment. They've helped me with a resume, with all kinds of recommendations. They're helping me with getting involved in medical school. So all these kinds of opportunities I wouldn't have had if it wasn't for the Workforce Center in Pacoima.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name's Adam Westcott. I'm a former emergency response systems company service technician, and I'm actively involved with the workforce in the Pacoima area. And yes, it's an area in the valley that needs a lot of help in the aspect of to support this project, in the sense to produce more work, more workforce for the people out there, instead of becoming homeless, and becoming more as a contributor for society and to better their own lives. This is something that really needs to be looked into, and there will be a benefit for society overall. It's very essential that education is provided for people who do want to go ahead in life, so they become a better person in society. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Israel Velasquez, Lydia Ramirez, Merlin Figueroa.
Good afternoon. My name is Israel Velasco. I am a pastor at a church in San Fernando, borderline San Fernando and Pacoima, called Trinity Church. It's about a 1,200 member church. And I wanted to speak to the reconsideration that was brought up. I don't think that Youth Policy Institute and the Workforce Center just targets homelessness. I know for a fact that they also help with the crime that's happening in these communities. Firsthand, I have had the opportunity to mentor, counsel, and help specific individuals that have grown up in these communities, and they have admitted to me countless times that at times when they're not able to find jobs, they quickly turn to crime in order to make ends meet for themselves and their families. And one of my goals has been to kind of get them out of the crime world, and one of the biggest things is helping them find jobs. It's incredible what a job does to an individual. It doesn't only provide financial stability, but mentally, emotionally, it just helps the individual in all aspects. And I wanted to make sure that I was here to speak on that these aren't just programs and dollars and cents, but they really at the micro level help out specific individuals. And I've seen it help out our community in terms of homelessness that was brought up, but also the crime and the situations happening there.
All right, thank you, Pastor.
Good afternoon. My name is Merlin Figueroa. I proudly serve as the Assistant Director for the North Valley Workforce Center in Pacoima. And I'm here to share with you that we're more than a workforce center. We also bring private funding to Pacoima. An example of that would be our Unidos US grant. Out of that grant, we had 180 Pacoima residents that were interested in the financial sector and how to get into banking. From the 180, we had 85 individuals that enrolled, and 63 completed successfully the program. And we're able to get placed in jobs that were in the financial sector, such as in banking with Citibank, which we have a strong relationship with. Also, we provided United Way a space to host workshops for people who were affected by fires and other natural disasters. They know us in the community as a center of support, so they were more inclined to attend because of where it was held. Also, we've held expungement workshops for the community who have been formerly incarcerated to meet with attorneys and paralegals.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Lydia Ramirez, and I would like to share my life experience and how Youth Policy Institute has helped me to tell my story of struggle and a story of success. I'm a domestic violence survivor. I spent 20 years of my life afraid and isolated in an abusive relationship that resolved many things from me. I adjust my immigration status to RAWA, and I went to a school and I graduated with a bachelor degree in spring 2017. I then started looking for a job, and once I made the decision to leave my husband, finding a job right after graduation with no experience whatsoever and 20 years gap in a resume is not an easy task. But fortunately, the Youth Policy Institute was there to help me out with information and training. Youth Policy Institute helped me to update my resume, practice smoking interviews, and I was able to secure a job in my field in which I've been able to help people with autism for over a year now. It's sad and frustrating to know that this same opportunity is not going to be available for other people that, like I've been for me, will be really beneficial because of cut out of funds. I'm here to appeal to you, showing how agencies like Youth Policy Institute make a great impact in people's lives, and ask you for reconsider your decision. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all for your comments. Next up, Vanessa Reistra, Sanaz Buzati, Humberto Quintana.
Hi, good evening. I'm Sanaz. I work with one nice worksource. Sorry for my language.
It's okay.
I feel that staff at VPI are very helpful and kind. I moved from Iran to make a better life for my family and get a good job in the healthcare industry. I meet with Mr. Thomas because I was interested in the clinical medical assistant program, and he was able to help me with getting this training certification. Every time I came to their worksource center, the staff were very helpful and kind, and always very friendly. Thank you for Miss Marian and Supervisor Victoria and Mr. Thomas. Thank you so much. You have a very nice employer in the worksource. They were nice. I'm happy for meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is Vanessa Restro, and the YPA program has benefited me in many different ways. It helped me out with my resume, it helped me out with mocking interviews, prepare me the right way how to and what not to do in interviews, and it even benefited me on getting a job at a supermarket, and within 3 months, getting promoted to be a manager. So I feel like if it benefit me in that way, it could benefit, many others. Keep me out of trouble for one. And yeah.
Okay, all right. Out of trouble is good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Good afternoon, Humberto Quintana, Planning Director with the Office of Councilwoman Monica Rodriguez. I'm here to speak on the results of the 2018 RFP for the WorkSource operators. As currently proposed, the Pacoima community of the North Valley is losing its service provider. The community of Pacoima is home to one of the most vulnerable populations in the Northeast San Fernando Valley, with a dire need of these types of services. Our office requests, if it's the desire of this community to move forward with the recommendations, that the service providers that are being selected and considered for the North Valley region provide satellite services in the community of Pacoima. However, given the selected service provider will have to encompass a greater geography, we ask for additional funding be identified and allocated to ensure that their current operations are not jeopardized as a result of an increased scope of work. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Okay, Victoria Ahutuzi, Thomas Flynn, Xavier Edwards, and Edna Rendoros. And Catalina Rodriguez. I think we called Catalina. Okay.
So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Victoria Watsi. I am the program manager for our Worksource Center. I oversee the project impact as well as other grants within the Worksource Center.
This is Workforce Center in Pacoima?
Yes, in Pacoima. Yes, the same location. And I'm here to request the opportunity to reconsider due to not only do we just serve our population, as you heard, but these services will aid other participants. As mentioned earlier, we are working with our reentry population, and right now it's hard as services that we are needed are not in the current Pacoima area. So moving this office out of the area will definitely impact them, as they're not going to have a location where to go. Not only some of our participants veterans are unfortunately homeless, so they come into the workshop centers to find a safety net for when conditions such as the weathers that we have, cold weathers, hot weathers, they come into and to kind of have a shelter. So it helps them, the center helps them to be able to be more protected in terms of the weather. We also being part of this program also helps, we outsource leverage services. So that helps with our reentry population as well. As sometimes certain programs we do not get a lot of income, so we do leverage and we co-enroll individuals to participate in other programs such as the WIOA program. So
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Thomas Flynn. I'm the vet rep at YPI Pacoima. I served 22 years service for my country, retired military. Like I said, I work with all the veterans. Utilizing the VEEP grant, I accommodate veterans with funded training, assist them with their resume, assist them with mock interviews and stuff. But I just think it's beneficial for us to stay open to, help our veterans out, because I feel we owe it to our veterans, considering what they've done for our country and stuff. I've seen a lot of veterans, a lot of barriers and stuff come through our doors, suffering from PTSD and stuff, having trouble, their transferable skills from coming from a combat MLS and stuff. So I just think it's detrimental that we keep our facility open to better accommodate these veterans, because I just think we owe it to them. Me being a veteran myself, I also tap into a lot of resources for these guys, and I just think it's important that we stay open to help these guys out. So, thank you.
Yep, thank you. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Xavier Edwards. I'm the peer navigator for Project Impact, which is a re-entry program. I just want to bring it to you guys from a youth perspective. This program and the community that's out there, it's so messed up that this center, that it's the only thing that they have for hope. And by taking this away from them, they don't have no hope. So it'll bring up crime. It'll, stop them from doing a lot of other things, positive things. By them being a part of this program, and when they walk into the workforce center, it's like a whole nother atmosphere. They see that we help them actually get a job, and we not just talk, and we actually really trying to help them. And once they see that, they okay, I really want to put my all into it, and then they get a job, and then they so thankful. And then especially for the people that's in my age group, people just be they don't have no hope whatsoever. Some of them don't have education, and then they just look for a workforce center, and they come to our workforce center, and then they be having so much hope, because they be okay, I have this opportunity to do this, or this opportunity to do that. So I just really hope y'all guys could take consideration. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your comments. Catalina Rodriguez and Edna Renderos, last two speakers.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You want to pull the mic up to you, though, a little closer.
My name is Edna Renderos, and I'm the owner of GSF Truck and Bus Training Schools. I am here to support the Worksource Center, and I am here to let you know that they have been working with us for quite some time now. We have a few veterans that, in fact, I have myself hired. They're working with us, and they have a better future now. We do truck training, and we place them into a job at the end of the training. We do also bus training. We work with MTA, who is, I believe now, under a different company, but we work with different companies, and we place them into the job at the end of the training. And this Worksource Center has helped us being able to keep those guys out of trouble. So I'm just here to support them and give them my full support.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Catalina Rodriguez. I'm the Senior Business Service Representative at the Worksource Center, YPI. I just wanted to let you know that we, so far through the years that I have worked for this organization, we have helped a lot of the business to growth, business that are ready to expand. We have been able to get the staff that they really need. Sometimes we have placed 55 individuals in just one side, and then 100 people in other like warehouse and different
locations. So we are there to support these individuals, also the ones that attend rapid responses. I'm sure you guys know what that means. So these individuals are monolingual, and we help this community. And that's the main community that we have, monolinguals. So just wanted you to reconsider the motion that we're having today, so you can have the workforce center open to the community, so we can assist this business to help the city to grow, and then to help our community as well.
Okay, thank you. Again, thank you for your comments. We know that the Workforce Center is an important network of resources throughout the city, and we appreciate the unique role that they play. The technical assistance is vital for the businesses and for individuals who are in the areas that are covered.
Thank you.
Yeah, we've heard some comments that maybe we can bring EWDD up to the table, just to answer some questions here. There's been some comment that the Workforce Board did not really have adequate time or notice to evaluate or to make recommendations on this RFP as it was moving forward. How do you respond to that?
So my name is Jan Perry, I'm the General Manager of the Economic and Workforce Development Department. To my left is Terry J., and to his left is Chibuzo Okufo. These were the two lead staff people on this second request for proposal, and I understand that you do have a number of questions. I'm prepared to answer them, and because I'm the General Manager, because I am on the appeals panel, I'm going to have to defer to them on certain more specific questions that you may have, and I may need to leave the room to recuse myself so that I don't overhear the information, because the process is not yet complete.
Okay.
Couple of things. Number one, early on in this process, when we were preparing to go a second round on the RFP, because the first one was terminated, the council, you specifically instructed us to work with the Chief Procurement Officer for the City of Los Angeles. I believe his name is Michael O., and Chibuzo actually did contact him. But as a safeguard measure, after Chibuzo spoke to him regarding the substance and the details on what went into the RFP, I made a courtesy call to him not to discuss the RFP or what was in it, but to make sure that, number one, he saw it, number two, that it was to his satisfaction, three, he did have some revisions, if my memory serves me well, and I promised him that all of his revisions would be incorporated. So just for the record, I wanted you to know we did work very closely with the Chief Procurement Officer for the City of Los Angeles in this process, staff in particular, and they can go into the details on that. The other thing I wanted to note for you is that so everyone's clear, YPI withdrew their appeal in this round of the RFP, the second round. So they withdrew it voluntarily. I can't speak to why they decided to do that, but they did. So for the record, you should know that. With respect to the Workforce Development Board, while I am not staff for the Workforce Development Board, nor am I the Executive Director, I am a member of the board, and I'm not sure why that issue of not having adequate enough time to debate and discuss. The staff can talk to you more about the urgency of the situation. Once we received emails from a number of our contractors in the first round that were specific enough in their complaints that it caused us grave concern about the sanctity of the first process, the sanctity and the integrity of the first process. So there was a sense of urgency about it, but we did it collectively through the board process. And then thirdly, you should also know that, just checking my notes here on the phone, that I was contacted by one of the council offices yesterday in the Valley, and we did discuss a possible carve-out in the area that is most affected, the Pacoima area, in satellite, the potential for satellite operation.
and said that we would do more work on this. Now, what I wanted you to know, as part of the Workforce Development Board, I actually made a motion, was it a month ago, to extend the contracts as a safeguard to get us into the annual plan process so that we could look towards a more strategic interweaving of many sources of funding so that we could achieve a goal of making sure that, if we can, that all centers get funded. Terry and Chibuzo are going to talk to you about the details on that. And the Workforce Development Board adopted that motion. So that was done. I don't think there's any. Now, do you want me to step out? Hold on a second.
That's your call.
You know what? Our Workforce Development Board attorney is right here, so let me just turn around. Although I'm used to being recused, I spend most of my meetings in the hallway anyway. So, should I step out? Okay, so I can stay in? Okay. All right. I'm like a POW. I spend so much time in the hallway, and my first inclination is to go into the hallway. All right, okay, great.
So you mentioned the initial procurement was withdrawn, and what's changed with the new RFP? What changed?
Well, obviously I'm going to let them speak to that, but there's no communication between staff and applicants as to, who won, who lost. Go ahead and withdraw your proposal. It's been a much more straightforward, very linear communication, and why don't I let them talk to you about that?
Great. Good afternoon. My name is Terry J. I work with the Economic and Workforce Development Department. So allow me to read.
Employee consultant, what's your...
I'm an employee of the city, yes. So just as a bit of background, the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, which is our funder through the Department of Labor, requires that at minimum every 4 years we re-procure our one-stop operators. Those are our work source centers, and also known as America's Job Centers of California. We last procured the centers in 2013 to start operation in our program year, which runs from July 1st through June 30th of 2014. So those 4 years expired.
Why did we wait so long? Why did we wait so long to reapply?
We initially did put out an RFP last January, and then as Ms. Perry indicated, there were problems brought up with that RFP. Among those and the things that you had asked what had changed, it was initially written in such a way that it could be interpreted that it restricted applicants to be already located within the city of Los Angeles or at minimum in the state of California. So we went through that, looked at all those items that we had in the first time around as a requirement to propose, and looked at those that were actually requirements to contract, took those out and put them in as information that if selected they would need to. So such as having to have a BTRC before proposing, as to already being registered with the state of California to be a business within the state of California. So we took those items out. So we initially, as I said, we initially issued that. The first RFP go-around was January 21st of 2018 to take effect July 1st, which would have put us in compliance. Subsequently, that RFP, request for proposal, was withdrawn. We went back to the drawing board, as I said, and recrafted the RFP. We submitted that to the city's procurement officer, Michael O., for review, and put it out again.
So you guys comments on the initial procurement and then also on the revised RFP? Yes,
we based the new RFP very much. The services requested stayed the same, but the actual requirements for proposers changed and were revised. Okay. So, in response to this RFP, each proposer was required to identify one of the city's area planning commissions, the 7 regions of the city, North Valley, South Valley, East, West. They were to indicate for which region they were proposing, and then each proposer was limited to 2 proposals. So, for example, YPI in this case proposed for the North Valley, and they also proposed for Central Los Angeles. They were successful in their proposal for Central Los Angeles, but as this shook out, not for the North Valley, and I'll go into that in just a second. Each of the narratives within these proposals were reviewed by outside raters. These were workforce professionals outside the city and county of Los Angeles. We wanted to ensure that there was no internal bias towards any of the existing contractors. So we used workforce boards in Nevada, Oregon, Washington, and as far east as Washington, D.C.
Any local input, like the council offices?
For the review of the RP?
Yeah.
No. In fact, the city controller office, in a recommendation to our department a number of years ago, wanted to ensure that there were no city employees involved in the review of RFPs.
Let me just kind of skip ahead because I know there's a lot of interest here. There was reference to 2 sites, the Pacoima and Koreatown, not being recommended for funding. Do you have a different take on that, or what's your assessment of those?
Was recommended for funding. Pacoima was not. In our analysis, we looked at the data for unemployment and for poverty, households with incomes of less than $25,000 for each of the regions. That indicated that we should have 2 centers in the North Valley, 2 centers in the South Valley. Currently, we have 3 in the North Valley, of which Pacoima is one of them, and only 1 in the South Valley, which is Canoga Park. Through this RFP, the changes to contractors and locations, most stayed the same. The big differences were Wilshire Metro was not recommended due to their score in the Central, and that was the Community Career Development. By moving a center from the North Valley to the South Valley, that opened up the center, a new center at Los Angeles Valley College, and that would be run by CCD, who would be closing their center in the Wilshire Metro area. YPI in the North Valley had the 3rd highest score, and so only having 2 centers in the North Valley meant we took the 2 highest scores. YPI was in
Now, we understand that the feds have cut funding to this program. So how was it decided that we could maintain the same number of sites and lower funding for each center? Was that just...
Well, we made a recommendation to the workforce board. We gave them 3 options. Within those options, the first 2 were to only fund 14 centers. The amount of funding throughout the years since we first procured our centers has dropped between $4 and $5 million. Initially, we set aside in this annual plan $14,100,000. The recommendation was to fund centers at $1 million. The WIB board, the WIB themselves decided on the 3rd proposal, which was to maintain 16 centers throughout the city, but this does mean that they would be funded for a lower amount, about $843,000 each instead of $1 million.
I'm going to ask the attorney to come up because I think we've got some...
I'll move over.
Yeah. Some additional insight in this process, and...
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and Councilmember.
Good afternoon.
Chris Lee from the City Attorney's Office.
Tell us, Chris, how you got involved and what your analysis has been based on the interviews you've conducted. And
Well, I think from my personal observation, frankly, the biggest problem that we have is that the board really never had any opportunity to have a policy discussion on how centers should be funded, whether it's 14 or whether it's 16. In preparation for this afternoon's meeting, I listened to the recording of the meeting again this morning. And at one point, the general manager made a motion to go with the third recommendation, and the entire discussion time that took to approve that was only 12 minutes, including the public comment period. And I think that is less than the public comment period that you spend here today. And most of the frustrations that we heard from both myself as well as my colleague Regina Mills, who's in the audience, was that board members such as Dave Crippens was saying that he's not necessarily disagreeing with the recommendation. However, the process that he was having difficulty with was the fact that there was not enough policy discussion as to how this decision should be made. And the way that he described it was that we were putting cart before the horses. And I think that was also echoed by public comment from somebody at the El Proyecto, voicing how people didn't really have an adequate opportunity to really be heard about the board's policy as to who should be funded and where they need to be located and stuff like that.
It appears that part of the rush in getting these approvals out are some deadlines. I mean, some deadlines that are impacting the program. Can you fill us in on what those funding deadlines or requirements are that require the decision sooner than later?
Yes. We are currently out of compliance with the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act. The way the Department of Labor interpreted that, we were fine up until June 30th of this year. The way the state interprets that, we were out of compliance a year prior to that. The Department of Labor allowed procurements prior to the new act that met the requirements to be considered in compliance, but the state interpreted it as all areas within the state needed.
And some of the implications of that.
So we are either 6 months out of compliance or we're a year and a half out of compliance right now.
Okay, so which means what?
Which, that puts us at the, subject to sanction by the state.
Okay, Mr. City Attorney, but is that your assessment of time, lag, and delay?
I think the fact that we are out of compliance is correct. However, it's not that we've been sitting idly doing nothing. I think we've been working very hard, to bring everything up to compliance. And I think any effort to actually make the program better will probably act in our favor when there's any attempt or consideration by either the federal government or the state government to try to sanction us for not being compliant in terms of procurement. So I like to say that we are in compliance, but frankly, I think because we're working so hard to do the program right, I don't think that will be held against us.
Okay. Madam Jean, you referenced you referenced a 6-month, that you discussed a 6-month extension or a 6-month
I don't remember if it was the same meeting where Mr. Crippens actually abstained when we voted on moving forward on the RFP process on the recommendation that I submitted for consideration to the Workforce Development Board, and he was the only abstention, and we all respect his opinion. He's done this for a very long time. The motion that I introduced extended the contracts, much the same as I think you had considered doing today, and the board supported that position or that recommendation because that would carry us to the point where we were able to put this entire body of work into the annual plan process, which will end next June 2019. The objective there is to basically keep this process moving forward and then allow us to have more time to explore the possibility of integrating other sources of funding so that we had a greater likelihood of being able to fund all centers and not have to go through this winnowing or cutting process.
I like the idea of trying to fund more centers, and I also like the idea of having more council input in the process.
The only thing that
without weighing the scale, but I think there's an opportunity for some input.
You have to figure out how to do that and not compromise the process because we have people wall up on political participation versus people who don't know nothing about our system and can grade it objectively without any self-interest or political.
I guess, we don't want to bring any bias in to the process, but I think we just want to bring a little more certainty to it to the extent possible. Ms. Busquiano, do you have any comments or thoughts at this point? Based on the comments and the testimony we received, I'm going to move to instruct EWDD to extend the existing work source center contracts for 6 months, and then to also work closer with the city's chief procurement officer to draft a new work source center RFP and to submit that draft RFP to the council.
So let me just clarify that.
Yes.
So you're asking for a third RFP to start all over again?
Correct.
So we're going to throw out the second one and go to a third one?
Well,
that's what
I think we're going to take a look at it. I think we'll have a little more input on it. That's what I want to see. If it's 2.5, that's fine.
I don't know how we do that. How do we do that?
Okay, well, we got 6 months. Let's try to work it out, figure out how we do it.
Any comment?
Only that the problems we had with the first RFP and the fact that the WIB did not have as perhaps adequate time for instruction was that we only had 6 months.
Okay.
So...
why don't we get the city attorney's office involved as well and see if we can come up with a more global solution. And CLA. I mean, I'm not trying to put it all on EWDD to figure out.
Well, there's a lot of ramifications for throwing out yet a second RFP. It's pretty serious.
Okay, well, let's have some comment on it. This is not the time, but I'm suggesting that we take this action and get the input from the city attorney, the CLA, the chief procurement officer, and council offices as we draft.
Maybe continue this item while we kind of work this out? No? Okay.
Unfortunately, there is a time limit.
Oh, there is a time lapse, I forgot. That's right.
Until tomorrow.
I forgot. Got it.
All right, well, if there's no objection, let's go do the order. Thank you. What's next on our agenda, Mr. Clerk?
The desk is clear.
Okay, no other business, meeting is adjourned. Thank you.